Allen Company and Big Al will be at the I-80 Truckers Jamboree. See you there.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
Who in recent news has been good and who's been bad? S.J. Munoz, Tyson Fisher, and Ryan Witkowski will tell us with some Roses and Razzberries. For years now, scientists and industry officials have searched for something to replace diesel as the primary power for large trucks. Volvo may have at least part of the answer. I'll talk with Kyle Zimmerman of Volvo Trucks North America. And finally, truckers have had quite a few discussions about how bright headlights are and what the impact of that is. Now, one man and the foundation he created are advocating for something to be done about LED headlights. Ashley Blackford has the story. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. If trucking wants to fix its driver retention problem, the industry needs to take a long look in the mirror. That was OIDA Executive Vice President Louis Pugh's overarching message Wednesday during an online discussion about truck driver recruitment.
I mean, I love trucking. I love it. There's nothing I've ever wanted to do. It's all I love it. I have a passion for it. But I do understand the problems. And we as an industry have to first admit to ourselves the problems and work on fixing them if we really want to make this job attractive. And one of those other things we need to do is by reaching out to our shippers and our receivers and those communities to get them to load the trucks so we're not having all this time given away and wasted time and detention time. I mean, I say it all the time. Who wants to come out here and give away 20 hours a week, spend every night trying to find a safe place to park or shutting down early and not get paid time and a half when they're working 70 hours a week and miss their family? That's why this is not a exciting career. Our industry needs to do a lot of self-reflection and self-repair to really become an attractive, sexy job.
Self-reflection was the point of industry newsletter The Inside Lanes panel discussion titled, Where's the Next Generation? Addressing the Talent Pipeline Crisis in Trucking. Driver turnover was a focal point, especially the turnover rate of large carriers, which is at 90% or higher. The Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association contends that trucking companies are able to find a new crop of drivers every year. That's not a problem, but keeping them in the industry is, because of low wages and difficult working conditions, from the pay-by-the-mile system and being away from home for prolonged periods of time, to a lack of truck parking and being told they can't use the restroom at a shipper or receiver. So, how to fix it? The first step, Pugh said, is ending the myth that there's a driver shortage and turning the focus to the real problem.
There's no driver shortage. There's never been a driver shortage. That's been a false narrative for 40 years or longer to keep wages down, drivers suppressed. When you have a 90% turnover in industry, you don't have a shortage.
The studies back up Pugh's words. The most recent report refuting the driver shortage claims can be found in the 2024 National Academies of Sciences Driver Pay Study. It said that claims of a driver shortage conflict with the basic economic principles of supply and demand. A year earlier, economics professor Stephen V. Burks and colleagues published the results of a study into whether there is a driver shortage. It concluded there isn't one. And a few years before that, the U.S. Department of Labor published a study that came to the same conclusion and said any issues in the labor supply could be corrected by increasing wages.
They get told how great this is going to be and all this stuff and see all these things. And it is cool. It's cool to think I'm going to get to drive this truck and go everywhere and see everything, because it's a cool career. It's a cool job. But all this other stuff, paying your dues in trucking is very hard. And I tell people, young people, if you come in here, you got to take a job. It's not going to be the best. You've got to earn your stripes. Young people today, I don't think they like to earn their stripes as much as what we had to. It's a different mindset. And I get it. I don't blame them in a lot of ways. But you have to, and after a year or two, if you can keep yourself safety clean and not getting tickets, you can write your own destiny then, because there's private fleets and LTL carriers and stuff where you can really get a good gig. But it's that first 2 years that's just so hard.
OOIDA has played a role in the introduction of several bills aimed at making the career less hard. The Got Truckers Act would require motor carriers to pay overtime wages to employee truck drivers who work more than 40 hours in a week. The Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act would dedicate $755 million toward the expansion of truck parking. And the Trucker Bathroom Access Act would require shippers and receivers to allow truck drivers working at the site to use their restroom. One of the panelists, Lindsay Trent, the president and co-founder of the Next Generation in Trucking Association, said solving some of the smaller problems would go a long way toward fixing some of the bigger ones.
We need to figure out how to retain drivers. We need to figure out how shippers and the suppliers can help to make the job better. How can they help with the wait times? How can they help make sure bathrooms are available for drivers? We have to put pressure on those shippers to help make the job better. I think that we've built a culture of them being the boss and allowing them to treat people and drivers the way they are, and that's terrible. They need to treat drivers like their family, right? Their friends, and they want them to succeed and they want to help them. So how can we do that to really make this better environment?
Getting those bills across the finish line is a good start. You can help move them along by checking out the fightingfortruckers.com website. The same stretch of Interstate 40 impacted by Hurricane Helene last year is shut down again. Flooding and a rock slide are to blame for the closure at the North Carolina-Tennessee border. Authorities say there was up to 5 feet of water on the interstate on Thursday. Crews are doing what they can to get everything opened back up once the floodwaters recede. Meanwhile, the National Park Service is reminding commercial vehicles to stay off of US 441. It is not built for heavier vehicles. It may not be a popular program, especially among commercial drivers, but New York City's congestion tolling program appears to be getting its intended result. That's according to a new report from the Regional Plan Association, which found that the program has cut traffic delays in Manhattan by 25% since it went into effect in January. The report says the tolling also reduced gridlock in nearby New Jersey counties by as much as 14%. Under the current congestion pricing plan, truckers driving a multi-unit truck with an easy pass are charged more than $21 during the peak period each time they enter the congestion pricing zone, with no daily cap. Indiana has paved the way for more tolling throughout the state. Governor Mike Braun signing a bill into law that allows the state to collect tolls on any interstate in the Hoosier State, but they'd have to get a waiver from the Federal Highway Administration first. The new law allows the Indiana DOT to make that request. The original bill sponsor, State Rep Jim Pressel, said he introduced it as a way of boosting revenue for road and bridge projects in response to a dip in funding coming from fuel taxes. And finally, transportation officials in Oregon are giving drivers a heads up about more than 24 superloads that'll be making their way across the state this summer. The Oregon DOT says the 31 superloads will be transported between the Port of Murrow and the Idaho border over the coming months. The first already happened this week. Each will travel between 10 and 30 miles an hour along parts of several highways, including US 730, US 395, Oregon Route 37, and Interstate 84. So be advised. And that's Lane Line Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Congratulations to Christopher A. Winder of Memphis, Tennessee. He's received the OOIDA Safe Driving Award for 21 years of safe, accident-free driving. That's the equivalent of a car driver going 158 years without causing a single accident. The OOIDA Safe Driving Award program is sponsored by Shell Rotella. And if you're interested in receiving the Safe Driving Award, you can find a link to more information on our website, landlinenow.com. Next, S.J. Munoz, Tyson Fisher, and Ryan Witkowski will bring us some Roses and Razzberries. I'll discuss a possible alternative for diesel fuel with Kyle Zimmerman of Volvo Trucks North America, and Ashley Blackford discusses the brightness of LED headlights with Mark Baker. We'll be back in just a moment with more news and information. Please stay with us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
High heat and low lubricity can break your diesel fuel down fast. Summer driving means crowded roads, more stress, dust, and a bigger risk of costly engine damage. Howe's Diesel Defender protects from the inside out, cleaning, lubricating, and fighting injector wear. Visit howsproducts.com.
With rising costs affecting everyone, switching to a genuine Vibertech TVD viscous damper can help you avoid expensive repairs and downtime. Save money and keep your truck running smooth with Vibertech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Landline Now, welcome back. Has your senator or congressman made you happy lately? Did the truck stop make you kind of sad? When they do either one, here at Landline, we have a special way of responding.
Ew.
We call it Roses and Razzberries. Staff writer S.J. Munoz keeps track of such things for Landline Magazine and for our program. S.J. is here now with the good, the bad, and the ugly from recent news.
Hello, we are back with another edition of Roses and Razzberries. The crew's back together again. S.J. Munoz, Ryan Witkowski, Tyson Fisher. How are we doing, guys? Kind of getting in that summer mode here. The heat's coming, it feels like. So, I guess for some people don't like it. I'm good with the heat.
I like
Let's go.
summer. If I have my choice between a heat dome and like a blizzard, I'm taking the heat dome every single time.
Give me winter.
Well, I guess
I love the things we get to do in the summer.
Right.
I hate being hot, man. It went from like 75 to like 90, and I'm done.
I mean, two out of three agree, so that's actually pretty good odds these days. So, again, we do like to remind you off the top here, if you do have an idea, rose, raspberry, maybe a combination of the two, you can send those over to roses@landlinemag.com. And I guess talking seasonal things, Tyson, this seems to be a seasonal affair here with the first story you have today.
Yeah, so raspberries to the latest trucker, and really every trucker that has gotten stuck on Smuggler's Notch in Vermont. So Smuggler's Notch is a portion of State Route 108. It's in Cambridge, Vermont. It's this snake-like, scenic route with insanely kind of like, tight, sharp turns. I mean, the point is, like, it's literally impossible for a tractor trailer, pulling like a 52-foot trailer to get to drive through it. You just cannot do it. Yet
doesn't stop them though, right?
It does not stop some truckers from trying. Every year, a handful of truck drivers get stuck on Smuggler's Notch, and it can take hours for them to get unstuck. So the Vermont Agency of Transportation, they have tried everything to prevent this from happening. Again, we talked about it off air. One of the first stories that I wrote about when I started here at Landline was one of these trucks getting stuck at Smuggler's Notch. That was over a decade ago. So, I'm sure it happened, before I started reporting on it.
You'd think the word would have gotten out by now.
But to that, yeah. So, the Vermont Agency of Transportation have put up signs everywhere. Everywhere from at the end point, at the beginning point. They have increased the fine to thousands of dollars if you get stuck. They have these things called chicanes, which is like an artificial kind of like a curve or block in the road to where you have to drive around. They put one of those into the entrance of Smuggler's Notch. That's new this year, and literally within a week, probably just a few days after the chicanes were constructed, a truck driver tried to drive through it. So, this
has got to be ego at this point, right?
There's an entire
challenge, maybe, right?
Yeah, you know that you can't make this, but I don't know. I'm feeling froggy.
So, despite all the efforts by the Vermont Agency of Transportation, some idiot truck drivers, what's happening is they are using passenger vehicle navigation apps. So, they're thinking like Google Maps, Apple Maps, and Waze and stuff like that. They're using that, and they are literally driving themselves into like a pretty costly situation and, a very annoying situation for, local motorists when you have to get stuck for, hours on the road. So, anyway, long time waiting for me to give an official raspberries to these truck drivers.
Yeah. I don't even trust Apple Maps, by the way.
Right.
So, and I've got a small vehicle.
Yeah, it's not a foolproof thing for sure, especially in these instances. And I guess speaking of driving habits, kind of keep that theme going here. And this is an interesting, course of action here. And Probably not one we recommend, right, Ryan?
Yeah, raspberries to this slow-moving idiot in South Carolina. Officers with the North Charleston Police Department were actually responding to another call around 3 in the morning when they noticed an excavator crossing the highway heading toward a grocery store. When the officers got there, they realized that the front of the store was freshly damaged, presumably from the excavator. When they tried to pull the driver over, he was a 53-year-old man. He led them on a slow-speed chase down the highway, the excavator reaching speeds of roughly 3 miles an hour. If that wasn't crazy enough, it lasted for an hour and 12 minutes. I don't know how someone can do that because I had to Google this. The average walking speed of an adult is 3 miles an hour, which means that he led them on a foot chase that they could have caught on foot.
Well, I'm sure, too, you probably, maybe there's a thought of like, okay, he's slowing down, he's stopping because of the slow rate of speed, but no, that's just that's the miles per hour he chose to travel at, I guess.
Apparently, they tried to set up roadblocks. He kept going around them. He finally turned into like a fairground and got stuck in the mud where he jumped out of the excavator and took off on foot at what I can only assume would be a higher rate of speed than he was traveling before.
Right.
That wasn't fast enough for a dog, though, because they sicked the dogs on him and took his ass down. He got charged with failure to stop for a blue light, which... honestly, I'd never heard of.
That's a new one.
Yeah. It's, just failing to stop for a police when they're trying to pull you over. But I asked Jamie, our editor, and she acted like I should have heard of that before. So we're not alone? Okay, good.
This is news to me.
Yeah, failure to stop for a blue light, malicious injury to real property, and malicious injury to real property enhancement. I have no idea what that means, but it sounds like this dumbass is going to be doing some time for what he did. So just, mental note, for all of those out there trying to think you can't escape the police, apparently it will take them 1 hour and 12 minutes to catch you on foot.
This has hints of killdozer. If you don't know what killdozer is, Google it, watch some YouTube videos. You will not be disappointed.
Well, we've been a little heavy on the raspberries here, so let's go ahead and sneak in a rose while we're at it.
Because a theme this week,
we'll get one in when we can here.
Yeah, so roses to a man who helped a truck driver find his dog. If you guys haven't seen the theme of my Roses Raspberries, pretty dog heavy on my end. So to keep with that, so earlier this year, a trucker, he was at a truck stop in Stratford, Missouri, when his dog basically jumped out of the cab and did not return in time for him because he had to make a delivery to in Joplin, Missouri. So he couldn't wait around for his dog, unfortunately. So he's like, I just got to go. So, kind of kudos to him for, sticking to the mission at hand there. But a local news anchor, her name's Leigh Moody, posted the lost dog on her Facebook page called Leigh's Lost and Found. And so what happened was a local man, Charlie Barnes is his name, he has a team of rescue and trapping volunteers. Like, this is a thing that he does. And they used a drone to survey the area, and then they found some tracks that kind of indicated that the dog was behind a barn there. So what they did was they set up food and a trap, and then it worked. About 7 hours later, the dog got caught in a trap, like a humane trap, not like a bear trap.
Clarify there.
That's what I was thinking already, man.
But even better than that, they found the dog, located the truck driver in Joplin, and drove the dog to Joplin for this unexpected and I'd imagine a pretty emotional reunion with the dog. So anyway, with a donated trap and drone, Barnes, his tracking dog, and his volunteers, they literally just track and trap lost pets at no charge. So that's a really cool service. Like, if I ever retire, that's the type of thing I would do. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to go find lost dogs.
There you go.
And this guy's doing it. So
and if you can't find the owner, maybe you have a new pet.
I would have a lot of dogs. Yeah, right. So
boy, Charlie Barnes, way to go.
No, that's definitely a cool thing. But
he does sound like a local trapper too,
right?
Charlie Barnes, go get him.
All right. Well, you mentioned it. It's a raspberry heavy show, and we'll get back to those now.
Look, I don't know how this occurred. Like, Mark and I were laughing about this earlier this week, and I don't want to laugh at other people's pain, but I'm going to anyway. Raspberries to literally everyone involved in this obvious scam. This from Tennessee. According to a Facebook post from the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, there were reports of truck drivers being scammed outside of a Love's travel stop off Interstate 40 in Dandridge, Tennessee. Authorities said that these victims would be approached by one of the suspects and then escorted to a group of other co-conspirators. The victims would be asked to play a betting game, and the victim would be conned out of their money and jewelry. Really? Didn't see that coming.
Right.
It's got to be hard to report that too, right? Like, hey, I was illegally gambling outside of a truck stop and somebody stole my stuff. Could you please send the police? I don't really know how that works, but apparently you can call that out. I get there's a lot of scams going around. I think, if you own a cell phone, you know that you probably owe a toll or have an unpaid violation in some state that you've never been to.
Even states that don't have toll roads.
Exactly. I mean, there's enough going on right now with you already trying to be scammed. Let's try to avoid these strangers in truck stop parking lots asking you to gamble, because I don't know if you know what a red flag is, but that seems like a Perkins-sized red flag.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to approach you hoping to benefit you. So yeah, let's just steer clear of that. And
I want to know what the gambling game was. Was it like follow the
that's
the
what
ball
that's what I'm kind of thinking of.
Yeah,
the old card tricks, and you kind of think of the movies on the street type of guys trying to just get over on you. It seems like that's probably the case there. And I guess we talked about the seasons earlier, the fireworks season and blowing things up. This guy took it to another level though here.
Raspberries to the idiot who has watched way too many bad action movies and tried to blow up a truck. So what happened was a North Carolina man forced a trucker out of his truck by holding him at gunpoint. For whatever reason, the man fired multiple shots at the fuel tank in an attempt to blow it up. So there's one problem with this, which is that's not how that works.
Does that not work that way?
At all. No, that's not how physics works.
Huh.
You can't blow up anything by shooting at it, despite what the movies have shown us. Fuel requires at least a spark for it to combust. A moving bullet does not have enough heat to make that spark on that. So at best, you will cause a fuel leak. That's all you're going to do. Related, you can't set fuel on fire by flicking a cigarette on it either.
I feel like I've been lied to all these years.
You'll just put the cigarette out.
That's not true. Walter White told me.
So take my word for it. Do not try to prove me wrong, because if I am wrong, I am not liable for that. But I'm pretty sure
I kind of want to know.
That's not how physics works. So adding to the idiocy, the man got caught because he returned to the scene of the crime while police were talking to the truck driver. So police got him after a car chase ended because the man ran out of fuel. So
it's kind of a full circle thing there, yeah. So
full circle.
God,
full circle.
I do love some irony.
All right, well, like we said, raspberries all around today, and we do have time to sneak one more in here. So Ryan, why don't you let us know about this?
Yeah, raspberries to anyone doing this kind of senseless stuff. The Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office.
Good job on that one.
Is that where that is? It's in Florida. Okaloosa County. They reported 3 commercial vehicles were damaged when someone threw pieces of concrete from an overpass along Interstate 10 near Holt. One of the passengers suffering minor injuries in that incident. Eggs were also used as projectiles, a more common overpass projectile. But, given the price of eggs, that feels like just... Are we complaining about that still, by the way?
I think so.
Okay. Well, either way, this happened around 12:30 in the morning. I have a fairly good idea about how all this went down. Probably had a 30 rack of Milwaukee's best involved. Look, I understand wanting to see the awe-inspiring properties of gravity at work, but maybe water balloons next time if you have to. I'm sure that would be just as cool to watch those splash.
Perhaps
against
a different
the
location as well. Maybe there's plenty of places you can go where there's not traffic.
Yeah, don't be a jerk. Don't be chucking concrete. I've seen a lot of things get chucked off of the top of overpasses in my days. That sounds like a weird flex for me to put out there, but and just here working in landline, I've seen it reported with pumpkins and gallons of milk and things like that. that. I don't know why we are so just enamored by watching things fall from an overpass, but the next time you have the inclination to do it, I don't know, maybe fill up a water balloon and just go have some fun.
Well, I'm not going to put myself in that weed category, so we'll go ahead and avoid that totally. But again, if you have an idea for a rose or a raspberry, you can send those to roses@landlinemag.com. Again, for Ryan Witkowski and Tyson Fisher, I'm S.J. Munoz. Landline Now will be back after this commercial break.
At Truck Stop, we've built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truck Stop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Firestone's FD694 drive tire for long haul and regional applications now delivers 126,000 more removal miles than the Yokohama TY517 MC2. Contact your Firestone commercial dealer to learn more.
For years now, scientists and industry officials have searched for something that could replace diesel as the primary power source for large trucks. And now, Volvo may have at least part of the answer to that question. You're listening to Landline Now, and I'm your host, Mark Redding. Welcome back to the program. In this case, we're talking about what's called hydrotreated vegetable oil, something entirely different from biodiesel and something that's a lot closer to the traditional diesel you run in your truck right now. I wanted to find out more about this new fuel, so I spoke recently with Kyle Zimmerman of Volvo Trucks North America about their project to use the fuel in their newly manufactured trucks and what Volvo hopes to accomplish by doing that. Basically, Volvo Trucks North America is going to be fueling their newly assembled trucks with this hydrotreated vegetable oil. And I'm wondering if you can explain in layman's terms what that exactly is.
Yeah, so hydrotreated vegetable oil, or HVO as it's called commonly, that's renewable diesel. So you take a food-based waste product, so you think your cooking oils, those things that can be collected from fast food restaurants, so forth, other food waste products. The idea is that you want to use waste products from this, that you're not actually taking good products and turning them into fuel. You're actually using products in that second life capacity to then make fuel. And what HVO is then you take those feedstocks and you hydrotreat them. So adding hydrogen to the process, you remove oxygen and some other impurities, which gives you this really stable fuel in the end, which functions just like diesel fuel.
Okay. Now, I've heard the term renewable diesel. Is this essentially the same thing, or is it different from that?
No, HVO is what we would call a renewable diesel. So really in the space, you have renewable diesel and you have biodiesel. And where we are with HVO, that is a renewable diesel.
Okay. Now, how does this differ from your typical straight out of the pump diesel people are getting at truck stops right now?
Well, this diesel, as we said, is made from, food waste stocks and so forth, whereas the diesel that's coming out of the pumps at your truck stops and so forth, that's a fossil-based diesel. So this is it's not a fossil-based diesel, it's a renewable diesel, and it also offers about a 75 to 85% reduction in CO2 emissions.
So essentially, in terms of the final product, is it pretty much the same?
Yeah, so it's going to perform the same as what a fossil-based diesel would. And in fact, if you talk to drivers who have used it, to any capacity, they'll tell you they feel like there's a little more performance with it. You actually, through the hydrotreatment process and removing oxygen and some of the impurities, you actually get a fuel that's more stable, particularly a fuel that is more stable at lower temperatures. We're talking down to like minus 20 degrees Celsius, which is, minus 7.6 Fahrenheit, where you start to see the fossil-based diesel at those temperatures will tend to start to solidify a little bit and it'll gel up. You see that also with biodiesel. At the lower temperatures, it doesn't perform as well because it starts to solidify. This hydrotreated vegetable oil, or HVO as we call it, you get a much more stable fuel that's not going to do that. And it's got a really long shelf life to it as well.
Let's talk a little bit about the trucks and the mechanics involved. Are there any kind of modifications that someone would have to make to a typical tractor trailer in order to run on this fuel?
No, that's a great question, Mark. And the answer is no. And that's the real chief benefit behind HVO, is that you're taking a fuel that is ready to drop into today's internal combustion as it is. You can fuel 100% with HVO, or if you fueled with HVO, but now you're all of a sudden at a station where you can't get HVO, you can just fill it with that fossil-based diesel as well. There's no engine modification needed, no third-party equipment, software things that you have to put on there. You can just run it as is. So it's a great viable solution, one that we would like to see continue to expand in availability to help decarbonize the long haul sector and the regional haul sector as well. But really, that whole heavy duty market, can benefit from running HVO.
I want to talk a little bit about the source of the supply, and you've mentioned waste products, of course. But to scale it up, I would think that waste products may not be enough to really fuel the kind of supply that's needed to make a significant dent in the diesel market. Do you think that in the future you might be looking at other sources like crops, or is that something you're staying away from with this?
Mark, I'm in the truck business. We build and produce trucks, and unfortunately I can't really comment, on the production capacity. I'm not sure what the availability of the waste products are out there. I think, unfortunately, there are probably a lot of these products that are still being thrown away that could be used, in the production of HVO. There's still major opportunities there, as there's opportunities everywhere. But this is a sector that I think is still growing. I think we still have to get our hands around understanding what it's going to take to scale it even farther. So we'll continue to let the suppliers of the HVO do their job, and continue to down our path of decarbonization through HVO and battery electric, and in the future hydrogen fuel cell and hydrogen in the internal combustion engine.
A lot of people are pushing electric-powered trucks, and I think all the major truck manufacturers have looked at this or are actually involved in this. But over the years, we've also heard, for example, about natural gas-powered. I was reading recently about propane-powered. Why did Volvo decide to go this direction as opposed to one of the others?
So we've had CNG in our product portfolio here in North America, and then globally we have LNG trucks where the infrastructure is available for those. They perform very well. But looking from a regulatory perspective, looking towards our long-term goals to move towards 100% zero emission sales by 2040, we wanted to look at the battery electric. There's a key opportunity to electrify now. When you look at the regional haul, you look at the port drayage operations, those areas, they represent a prime sector that can adopt electric trucks and run them successfully currently. Volvo Trucks North America started obviously in 2019 with the VNR Electric and the announcement of the Volvo Lights project, which ran until 2022. That project was really key in helping us as an OEM and then others outside the industry or in the industry understand what was going to take to scale battery electric trucks, what they needed. We created the certified EV dealer network because folks that are adopting battery electric trucks need the same uptime with those trucks that they get with their traditional internal combustion engine trucks. So there's a key market opportunity with the battery electric trucks. They provide a zero tailpipe emission solution for our customers. And we're happy to see that the adoption continues to grow with those trucks.
Something I was reading in some material from Volvo and also in some of the coverage of this, the president of Volvo talked about a 3-pillar approach to this whole situation. Can you explain what those are and kind of translate them into layman's terms?
Yeah, absolutely. So with 3-pillar, we understand that to decarbonize heavy-duty transportation, we don't foresee one technology being the silver bullet technology, so to speak, that one technology is going to become dominant within the foreseeable future. So what we've done there is the first pillar we talked about already here is battery electric trucks. So that's one pillar. Then we talk about fuel cell EV trucks. So, running hydrogen in those fuel cell trucks. And the fuel cell acting is an onboard generator, which can put electricity back into some smaller batteries that are on the truck. You won't have to have near the battery capacity with a fuel cell EV. But the fuel cell will act as sort of an onboard generator, putting electricity there and electricity directly into the driveline. So it makes that a zero emission vehicle as well. The only emission that you get from a fuel cell EV truck is just water vapor, which is great. And then the third pillar, obviously, being our internal combustion engine technology, because, as an industry, we've got over 100 years of technology into the internal combustion engine. And it's something that is going to be needed in many of those places where you're not going to be able to get hydrogen infrastructure or electrical infrastructure installed in the near term. So that's where a fuel like HVO comes into play, because you can put HVO into an internal combustion engine truck and you can make a reduction of 75 to 85% in the CO2. And as we've announced at Volvo, we've created a joint venture with Westport to then run hydrogen in the internal combustion engine as well. So moving in three distinct paths is going to be critical for us at Volvo Trucks, but as an industry, to get to where we have to go to get those net zero rolling populations on the road.
And it's interesting because in looking at that, I've talked with a lot of people about some of these related issues, and they always say there's no silver bullet, there's no one solution. And it sounds like Volvo is completely on board with that concept, the idea that no one solution. We aren't just going to replace diesel with a thing.
Correct. Trust me, our engineers and we'd certainly all love it if there was one solution, right? We didn't have to invest really heavily in three distinct paths, but it's just not the case. I mean, you have so many external factors, as we talked about, with infrastructure, geography, those type of demands, and it's going to take time. And I think it's going to take those three pillars that we're working on heavily.
At this point, this is the situation where you're using the HVO specifically with trucks leaving your factories. And obviously, for this to be an effective fuel across a wider swath, you'd have to go into a much broader application of it. How widespread or how much of the solution to the problems we face in trucking do you think that this fuel will take up?
I think it could take up a very big portion of the decarbonization. I think what the real challenge is going to be is, like we see with everything else, can we scale the production of it? I think that the production can be scaled up. That's great. And I think you have to see areas where we look at incentives, right? The HVO is incentivized in places like California, where it then drives it to that cost parity with diesel fuel, and then makes it a really easy decision for a fleet who's trying to achieve some sustainability goals to say, hey, we can now fuel with HVO. We can make a large CO2 reduction impact today, and it's available and it's on cost parity. So it's a no-brainer for them. And I think that's the next challenge, right? Is we have to make that available, and we've got to get it on cost parity as well.
Okay. Well, Kyle, that's all I have. Is there anything else that you think people need to be aware of regarding this issue, or maybe that I didn't ask about you think I should have?
Oh, I think it's just, I think it was a great questions that you asked, Mark. And I look forward to continuing to talk about what we're doing at Volvo Trucks North America, but also what we're doing as an industry. I think the industry together has some extremely bright minds, some of the best engineers in the world work in this industry. And we all have the goal of reducing CO2 emissions. We're all working towards that, and we're going to get there.
Fantastic. Kyle, thank you very much for your time. I certainly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Really appreciate it.
That was Kyle Zimmerman of Volvo Trucks North America talking about a plan by Volvo to fuel their newly assembled trucks with hydrotreated vegetable oil as an alternative to traditional diesel fuel. You can read about cleaner versions of diesel fuel in the February issue of Landline magazine. Contributing editor Tom Berg has an article titled "Clean Diesels Burn Cleaner with Alternative Fuels." Again, that's in the February issue of Landline magazine. That article can also be found online. We'll have a link to it on our website, landlinenow.com. Just click on the headline or photo at the top of the page, and that's where you'll find all the website links, email addresses, and phone numbers that we mention here on the show. Again, that's at our website, landlinenow.com. For Landline Now, I'm Mark Reddick. Every day on our show, we like to remind you about the importance of staying in contact with your elected officials. And while you might think it doesn't make a difference, it does. If you want to make your voice heard on any of the important issues that we mention here on the show, you should call your representative in the U.S. House or either one of your U.S. senators. To call any member of Congress, all you have to do is dial up the U.S. Capitol switchboard. That phone number is 202 888-224-3121. Provide the operator your zip code, and they can connect you directly to the office of your senators and your U.S. congressman. Again, that's 202-224-3121. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
We've all experienced it, driving down the interstate at night and being blinded by LED lights coming in the opposite direction. Now a man in Oregon is doing what he can to advocate against the harm of these bright lights. Mark Baker started the Soft Lights Foundation in 2021. He joins me now. Mark, can we start with a bit of your backstory and how you got started?
Yeah, so I got involved in the LED issue around 10 years ago now, so almost a decade. Because there's very powerful light, and I was having a hard time absorbing this light. I was a middle school math teacher before this LEDs came out. So when the LEDs came out on the street lights and the car headlights and the flashing lights on emergency vehicles, it was really overwhelming me. It's just too intense, and the blue rich color really is psychologically disturbing for me. So I started to get involved in trying to figure out what's going on with this new kind of a light. It was so bad that I had a mental breakdown as a teacher and ended up in the hospital for 4 days. I was diagnosed with mild autism at that time. So the outshoot of that is photophobia, sensitivity to this light, any light. But I mean, nothing had ever affected me in the way LEDs do. So then I was unable to go back to work. So there was so little information out there as to why this light was so different. So you search the internet, but it wasn't coming up with much that would explain why. So I started exploring the physics issues of LEDs and trying to understand. I do have a degree in electrical engineering, so that was helpful, but I certainly am not a physicist. And then started to piece together. And then I started connecting with other people that had the same stories, such as on Facebook. And then there are just many stories of people. So I started a webpage, softlights.org. And then to raise our profile, I made it as a nonprofit. We're registered in the state of Oregon as a 501c3. So that allows us to have a presence and, a formal thing. We really don't get much in the way of donations, so it's just a lot of activism.
Mm-hmm. Probably an obvious question for anyone who has driven down the road and, seen a vehicle with LED lights. What are kind of some of the biggest issues when it comes to these?
So the primary issues, there are probably three. Excessive intensity, the blue rich light, and then a digital flicker. So everybody is now, especially truckers who drive many hours at night, are now being exposed to this very hazardous light. Blue light is important for the day to control our circadian rhythms, to wake us up, to tell us when to eat, when to have energy. So it's an important wavelength, around 450 nanometers, but you don't want it at night. So anything with headlights is exactly when you don't want blue light. And so the manufacturer switched to blue light because it was cheaper to manufacture. It was easier to get more power. So the typical LED headlight has what they call a correlated color temperature of around 6,500 Kelvin. And this is a very high number, very steep peak of blue wavelength light. It's exactly the opposite. If you were doing anything with health or safety, you would not use that. Blue light is also the most energetic, and so it's the color, the wavelength that causes the most glare. So you don't want glare. Glare is unwanted light in your eye. So that blue light comes into your eye and bounces around and doesn't go onto the retina. So you're not getting an image, you're just getting light that's impairing your vision. So scientists have known for over 100 years, 150 years that yellowish color is the right color for headlights. And we had that before with halogen or just a tungsten filament headlight. So the switch was unwarranted as far as safety, health, physics, scientific knowledge. It was just something the industry did. They never got permission from NHTSA to do it. And then NHTSA never acted to say, well, that's not a good idea.
You said you've been doing this for 10 years, a little over 10 years. How have you seen the popularity in these increase over those years?
Well, I wouldn't say that LED headlights are popular. I would say that it has exploded in terms of the manufacturers going to it. The manufacturers have controlled this, and we're supposed to have government oversight, like the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FMCSA, for truckers, and NHTSA for passenger vehicles. They're supposed to control these lights and supposed to set regulations and tell these manufacturers, if you want to do something new with new technology, you make an application, submit a petition, we'll review it, we'll do our safety studies, and then we'll come back and tell you whether. That never happened.
What would you like to see happen?
Well, so we talked to a lot of people. Many people will say, hey, we were perfectly happy with the halogen headlight. You have this burning tungsten filament. You have a little bit of gas inside to make it glow a little bit brighter. And they did receive a handful of complaints. I say handful. Maybe they had actually 5,000 complaints. So a little bit, even the halogen is maybe slightly too much, too blue, too intense. But generally, that's not something that the public was complaining about. So this switch to LED technology was not something that the public was clamoring for. We don't think that LED technology can really ever be fixed. You have such power coming out of such a tiny space. It's just not human compatible. If you were the only person driving and there was no other drivers or pedestrians on the road, and all you needed was pure power, LEDs are fine. But there are other people on the planet, and there are other people coming towards you, and there are people walking. And so that has to be balanced out. We need the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration to do their jobs. And I have some comments about the FMCSA that I could tell you in a minute. Okay. And so they're not doing their jobs. And then Congress isn't doing their job either. So I've convinced my representative, Mike Thompson in California, to write a letter and to the House Energy and Commerce Committee requesting a hearing on this issue. It should be straightforward. You have a hearing, have the explanation why you're not regulating LED headlights. But it's been an incredible struggle to get other members of Congress to sign on. We have only five other members of Congress have signed on to this letter. So we are trying to get each representative to sign, and they have all their whatever excuses. It's a simple process. So Congress needs to do, there are laws already in place. Those laws are being violated. And then they need the whole structure needs to be put in place. The other agency that's involved is the Food and Drug Administration. So their job is to have this knowledge to test and evaluate these kind of things for our health, the photobiological effects, the neurological effects, psychological, hormonal. There's a lot going on. Unfortunately, the government is cutting the jobs right now at the FDA, and we actually need them to increase the jobs. It's called the Center for Devices of Radio and Radiological Health. They're the department that's in charge of this. And their job is to liaison with NHTSA. they have a team, they do these studies. That all needs to happen. Instead, it's just a free-for-all, and now we have these issues. And people that are out at night, truckers and police officers and stuff, Uber drivers, they're really suffering. And we get a lot of comments from people saying, I can't drive at night anymore. It's too dangerous.
To contact the Soft Lights Foundation, you can visit softlights.org. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. That's our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and stay safe.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit ooida.com.